Hello, and welcome to the Indicator 11 support session. This session is being recorded and will be posted on our YouTube channel so that you can go back and access it later. I'm Dee Dee Howells. I'll be the lead point of contact for this particular indicator. You're welcome to follow along with the slides using this bit.ly, and you can access the slide deck at any time using this address. So a few of the things that we're going to talk about today are a brief overview of what this indicator is. We'll talk about the self-review summary report, scheduling support for completing your self-review summary report, and then we'll finish by addressing a couple of the common challenges and mistakes that districts have made with this indicator in the past. You can access general information on any of the indicators through our welcome and overview session, which will be recorded as well. And you can access those slides at this bit.ly. There is a manual specific to Indicator 11. And when you are accessing the slides, there's a live link for that manual here. This manual is also in your special education profile page. So if you are looking at your district's profile page through ODE, you'll be able to access the manual there as well. So let's talk briefly about what Indicator 11 is. Very simply, it is an indicator for child find for timely initial evaluations. So what it does is it really looks at the percentage of those initial evaluations that are completed within 60 days of getting parent consent. And you can see the little calculation here. It is just literally a division of how many there were total and how many of those evaluations were completed within the 60 calendar days. And so that is where you get the percent that your district was compliant. Obviously, the indicator is for there to be 100% compliance. A couple of dates that we're going to look at today are when specific actions and items for this indicator are due. The first one is coming up relatively soon, and that is February 9th. That is for data reporting error verifications only. So when you go into your profile, if you're unsure if you have a data reporting error, a timeline error, or a combination of both, you will look in your profile rating and it will tell you which type of error you have. If you have a data reporting error, you will fill out that verification form, and that is the first time that anything is due, which again is February 9th. So now let's talk about the self-review summary report. If you've had an indicator in the past, you're familiar with this process where you answer some prompting questions to help you identify root causes that may have led to this indicator of noncompliance. So as you complete the form, a few things that I'd like you to consider are, in terms of data reporting errors, some possible root causes could be that there's a lack of a process to review and confirm dates before they're getting entered into EMIS, or that there is a lack of a procedure at the district level to identify those errors in time to catch them and correct them. A couple of things that might possibly be things to consider for systemic improvement would be to make sure that you have some kind of practice in place by which you're checking the EMIS reporting sheet with the actual ETRs to make sure that there's not anything getting entered into EMIS incorrectly, so that there's not a transposition of numbers or dates or something like that. And then also making sure that you have a process in place in your district to utilize the general issues report, either monthly or quarterly, so that, again, that you can identify and promptly correct any errors that do exist. If you are looking at errors in the actual timeline in which the initial evaluation was completed, then you want to look at some possible root causes of perhaps the district doesn't have a contingency plan by which you would proceed with evaluations when there's some type of catastrophic event like the COVID-19 pandemic that causes challenges to the timeline. That really is probably the case for districts who your evals were not completed because of closures and because of students working remotely and not being available for face-to-face testing, or perhaps you didn't have assessment tools that could be administered virtually. You didn't have a process identified and in place within your district to be able to complete evaluations in a remote setting. And so those are some things obviously would be related to the pandemic. On a larger scale, outside of the pandemic, often districts may have lacked a system or a process in the district to make sure that there are reminders of due dates, who is monitoring that, who's on top of making sure that any open evaluations are completed in a timely manner. Also making sure that that you've got sort of an established practice to make sure that you are documenting all of the actions during the evaluation timeline and then coding those correctly. So often there may be issues where a parent refused or there's a medical reason why a student can't be evaluated, but a district fails to adequately code those in EMIS, and so they end up with an error here. So as you consider completing your self-review summary report, I'm going to give you 4 dates that will be held on my calendar, during which time you can schedule time to conference with me and I can walk you through the process or answer any questions that you may have. These are the dates that I'll be available from 9 to 3:30. And if none of these dates work for you and you have a finding and need assistance, please remember that you can also contact me and I will just set something up with you individually. The next due date I want you to be aware of is April 1st. This is the date that your self-review summary report and your improvement plan, will be due to the state. You will upload these into the monitoring system and then get feedback from the monitors at the state or feedback from me. But again, that April 1st date is when those items are due. September 30th is when your systemic correction worksheet is due, and also student record items. So that is if that's not for data reporting errors, that's if you actually had non-compliant timelines and you have to upload any of the student records. That would be the date for that. And any improvement activities that you identify in your improvement plan, that's when those items will be due as well. All right, let's talk about a few common challenges or mistakes that districts make. With the self-review summary report, please make sure that you address each item and mark it as either a concern or not a concern. So you need to make sure that you're answering each of the prompting questions with a response, and then you have to identify whether or not it's a concern. If it is an area of concern, you have to rank the level of priority for each of those items. When you do your improvement plan, you want to make sure that you write your goal to address complete compliance. It would not be sufficient to say that 90% of your initial evaluations will be done in a timely manner. Obviously, we're looking for 100% compliance. You also want to make sure that any activities that you describe that will be taken by the district, such as professional development or anything else that you do, that they actually align to the area that you prioritized as an area of concern in the self-review summary report. So we just want to see that alignment between your SRSR and then the activities that you decide you're going to undertake in your improvement plan. And then when we think about systemic corrections, want to make sure that all of the info that you put in is accurate, and please do not leave any fields blank on any of the forms. A few suggestions I have for you. If you find that you had a finding under the data reporting errors, I mentioned earlier that general issues data report. This is a great tool for districts to use as a departmental check to make sure that you do not have any errors, or if something was coded incorrectly or dates were mixed up and put into the system incorrectly, you will catch those and can correct them right away. The other thing I'd like you to think about is how your district's internal monitoring team plays a part in supporting and determining the root causes for noncompliance, and how that team can help you in monitoring and then also providing feedback and support to staff. So if you find that there is a problem in the way the evaluations are being done, and there's a breakdown so that things aren't happening in a timely manner, how your internal monitoring team may be able to help provide some of the support and monitoring for that going forward. And then also, you want to think about how your district structure for timeline compliance could be also met and supported through TBT meetings or staff meetings, or the use of online tools that can keep everybody on track and make sure that you're not missing crucial dates and timelines. So we need to talk about delays due to COVID. We know that many districts struggled last year, probably less so in 2021 as they did in 2020. But that still may be a consideration for some of the records that you have if you have a delay in timelines. Please note that only ETRs that had consent dated after January 17th of 2020 can be considered as, the reason behind that being a delay because of COVID. And really the primary consideration, the thing that you have to ask yourself and be able to answer is, if you have an evaluation that was not completed on time, would that evaluation have been late even if the building closure had not occurred? If it would have, then that's really a system level problem, not a problem due to the pandemic. Here are some of the non-compliance codes that are acceptable when there was a delay that was related to the pandemic. Parental choice. You may have had parents who did not want to bring their child in face-to-face and said they wanted to press pause on the evaluation and complete it at a later time when they felt more comfortable. So you can use that. Parent refused consent or withdrew consent. The child's health. There may have been an issue where a child was in a vulnerable population, and so a doctor did not want the child to participate in anything face-to-face. And then again, that sort of incorrect data reporting because of COVID delays that may have happened in a previous reporting cycle. If you have additional questions, we will have a live Q&A session on January 12th from 2:30 to 3. Here's the Zoom link and the passcode. And if you're not able to make it to that, please remember that this will be recorded and available on our YouTube site. And you can also reach me at my email address there on the screen. Thanks so much for joining me. I'm here to support you through this process, and don't hesitate to reach out. I look forward to hearing from you.